Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a fleet manager, an industrial buyer, or honestly just someone fascinated by how the global heavy machinery supply chain actually works, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a super focused look at the hidden complexities of sourcing specialized vehicles from China, which, as we know, is the world's absolute largest manufacturing hub. And let's be real for a second. Procurement is stressful enough before you even add international shipping into the mix, right? It is incredibly tempting to just look at a sticker price when buying massive equipment like a fuel tanker or a fire engine and say, okay, that's my budget. But treating that initial price tag as your total cost is literally one of the biggest procurement traps you can fall into. So today we're going to break down the engineering specs, the logistical variables, and the specific market tiers that dictate what you are actually paying for.
Okay, let's peel back the layers of this procurement iceberg. Here is our roadmap. First, we'll cover the sticker price illusion. Second, the chassis cost foundation. Third, superstructure engineering. Fourth, compliance and standards. Fifth, the high cost of cheap. And finally, strategic procurement.
Section 1. The sticker price illusion.
Let's face it, your immediate curiosity, everyone's immediate curiosity, is always those initial capital expenditure benchmarks. To give you a baseline, you're usually looking at standard export-grade water bowsers coming in between $22,000 and $38,000 US. Garbage compactors, those sit right around $28,000 to $55,000, and fuel tankers generally range from $35,000 to $65,000. Now, these figures are great for anchoring your initial thoughts, but I have to explicitly warn you, treating these numbers as the final, out-the-door cost is a massive mistake. These ranges are really just the absolute tip of the iceberg, and they swing wildly based on the technical decisions we are about to jump into.
Section 2. The cost foundation, the chassis.
Now, what's really interesting here is what happens when we move below the surface. You see, the chassis isn't just the wheels in the cab, it's the absolute foundation of the truck. It's where the vehicle's true longevity and its gross vehicle weight are firmly determined. Notice the sheer dominance it commands in your budget. A staggering 50 to 70% of the total price for a special vehicle goes squarely into the chassis, so the brand and the capacity you choose right here, that's going to absolutely dictate your engine's lifespan, your ease of maintenance, and ultimately whether your vehicle actually spends its life out on the road working or stuck in a repair shop.
And you've got a couple of very distinct paths to choose from across the tiered pricing structures. On one hand, you have the premium tier. We're talking brands like Isuzu, Hino, or Mercedes-Benz. Yes, you're looking at a 30 to 50% higher initial upfront cost, but what you get back is maximum uptime and incredible reliability, especially in really harsh environments. And that aggressively lowers your total cost of ownership over time. Then you have the mid-tier, brands like Dongfeng, Foton, or Sinotruk. Honestly, this is the international sweet spot for a lot of buyers right now. These brands have matured massively. They offer robust power takeoff systems, full Euro 5 and Euro 6 compliance, and globally available spare parts, all without getting hit by that top-tier price premium.
Section 3. Superstructure engineering and materials.
So, if the chassis is the foundation, the superstructure is the actual muscle, right? The tanks, the cranes, the vacuum systems, the stuff doing the heavy lifting for your specific mission. Let's walk through this matrix because your specific operational needs are going to swing the budget drastically here. Take tanker materials, for example. Choosing an aluminum alloy is fantastic because it reduces weight and increases your payload, but it also costs about 25% more than standard carbon steel. Or what if you have a high-cycle application, like a garbage compactor that's just constantly crushing waste all day long? You absolutely need premium Italian or German hydraulics, like Rexroth, to prevent those seals from failing. And then there's pumping units. Need specialized chemical pumps or a high-reach fire pump? Boom! That's going to add anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 straight to your build cost. I really want to highlight this massive number right here, $3,000 to $8,000. This is a hidden premium that gets added just to meet international safety standards on something like a fuel tanker. If your operating destination requires a bottom-loading system, vapor recovery units, and overfill prevention sensors, instead of just a cheap, standard top-loading gravity discharge, you absolutely have to factor this substantial bump into your initial budget.
Section 4. Compliance and export standards.
This brings us perfectly to the red tape layer. This is where destination-specific rules fundamentally alter your final price tag. And this brilliantly illustrates the divide. On one side, a standard domestic Chinese configuration is usually left-hand drive, Euro 2 emissions with basic CCC certification. Pretty straightforward. But if you're buying for an international market, let's say South Africa, Australia, or the UK, you need an export-compliant configuration.
Transitioning up to Euro 6 adds considerable cost because of those highly complex after-treatment systems. Plus, demanding right-hand drive along with international certifications like CE marking or ADR for hazardous goods, well, that not only inflates the budget, it can add up to 30 extra days of manufacturing lead time.
Section 5. The high cost of cheap. All right, listen up, because we are officially entering the danger zone at the very bottom of the iceberg. When you chase the absolute lowest bid in the special vehicle industry, you are almost always buying into severe hidden compromises. Here is a rapid-fire warning of what that actually looks like. A manufacturer might use thin-walled 4mm steel instead of the recommended 5 or 6mm plates just to save on raw materials. The result? Structural fatigue and tank cracking within just 24 months. Or you might actually find recycled or refurbished hydraulic cylinders secretly hidden inside your build. Or maybe they skimp on the shot blasting process and just slap on a cheap epoxy primer. If you operate in a coastal or high-humidity environment, that guarantees rust and structural failure. So how do we actually defend against this? The single most actionable directive for procurement officers is to explicitly demand detailed material test reports, MTRs, along with hydraulic pressure test certifications straight from the factory. Making these documents a mandatory part of your request for quote process is exactly how you safeguard your long-term return on investment against those cheap, devastating manufacturing shortcuts.
Let's just pause and reset for a second with a really critical question. Why does the price of special vehicles in China fluctuate so incredibly much, sometimes even from one month to the next? Understanding this volatility is the absolute key to locking in your budget, and that brings us to our final proactive playbook.
Section 6. Strategic procurement and sourcing. Now that we understand the engineering risks, how do we navigate this market safely and strategically? Well, remember that price fluctuation question? The primary drivers are actually entirely macroeconomic. We're talking about the shifting global prices of raw steel and aluminum, the daily volatility of the US dollar to Chinese yuan exchange rate, and of course the constantly moving target of ocean freight shipping costs. Because these three macro factors are constantly shifting, as a buyer, you must always request a quote with a strict 30-day validity period. That is how you protect yourself from sudden market spikes. You also really need to plan your deployment schedules accurately. So let's walk through the timeline. For fleet managers, the clock really starts on day 0. That's when your chosen chassis physically arrives at the factory floor. For a standard vehicle, production is typically going to be wrapped up between day 30 and day 45. However, if you need a right-hand drive setup, or if you're ordering a highly specialized export model with imported components, like a complex fire engine, you need to expect that lead time to stretch out to 60 or even 90 days. To summarize the smartest buying strategies out there, number 1, clearly define your environmental specs very early in the RFQ process. Are you dealing with tropical heat, mountainous terrain, corrosive chemicals? Tell them, and let the manufacturer optimize for that. Number 2, partner directly with an integrated manufacturer like CN Special Vehicle. They have the capability to customize superstructures across a whole variety of different chassis platforms. And number 3, proactively purchase a 2-year wear and tear parts kit right up front. Look, major, reputable manufacturers are going to give you a 1-year superstructure warranty, and they can absolutely air express critical parts to you globally. But having those high-wear items sitting on your shelf on day 1, that is an absolute lifesaver. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on for your next procurement cycle. Are you buying a price tag, or are you buying performance? Because by prioritizing specification-driven value over just hunting for the lowest possible bid, you aren't just buying heavy machinery. You are actively securing your reliability, your uptime, and your long-term success. Thanks so much for learning with us today on this explainer, and we will definitely see you on the next deep dive.